racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got with the outside, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my God! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Sec's very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Back in Supercars tonight for Week 8, Season 5 of the Just Send It Sim Racing Series presented by Logitech G, custom track art and owned 3D game streaming. Good evening everyone, Lockie Mansell, great to have your company right here on the SimSpeed TV network as we head to the classic San Marino Grand Prix circuit. That's the Imola racetrack, and we head there with the Holden VF Commodore and Ford FG Falcon V8 Supercars this week. Joining me in commentary, making his Just Send It commentary debut tonight, you would have heard his dulcet tones on series like the Panorama Drivers Club Endurance races. It's a very good evening to Nick Scarrigeau. How are you going this evening, Nick?
Yeah, good, Lockie. How you doing there?
Yeah, really well, thank you. And we had Formula One here at the Imola circuit on the weekend just gone. We've had V8 Scots rounds here at this track in the past, including a 500k endurance race this year, but we go back to the older model supercars tonight. How are you seeing tonight's race panning out?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're going to see some pretty strong drivers here, and one of the other ones is the official series also comes here to Imola as well, so seeing some pretty dialed in drivers at the moment. Hobbo's out near the front again, I believe, and yeah, those championship leaders are all really bunched out towards the front of the grid here tonight.
Indeed. In fact, we've got our two main title protagonists, Brenton Hobson and Ryan Wood, both starting inside the top three positions on the grid. We'll run you through the grid positions very shortly, but we are actually running an official championship for the Just Send It series for season number 5. The winner of the championship will pick up a very cool trophy thanks to one of our series sponsors, Custom Track Art. So looking forward to that presentation being made after the 12th and final round of the series. We have a look at Ryan Wood, one of our title contenders, and here are the point standings. Now, this is after the 7 rounds that we've had so far, and this is counting each driver's best 5 of those 7 rounds. When we get to the end of the season, we'll be counting each driver's best 8 out of the total 12 rounds that we have, and it is Brenton Hobson who holds a 9-point advantage at the top of the standings over Ryan Wood, with Mitchell McLeod in at 3rd position. All 3 of those drivers have had race victories this season. Brenton Hobson 3 race wins to his credit. Emerson Harvey and the ever-consistent Mario Vartanian rounding out the top 5 on the points table. Kobe Williams in 6th, Job Stewart in 7th. I don't think we'll be seeing Job Stewart back for any more rounds, though, due to his Supercars A-Series commitments. Tyson McAvoy, Daniel Yeaman, Andy Carey completing the top 10 in the series standings. Race format tonight is the typical Just Send It format, a 40-minute race. A random number of safety cars, could be anywhere between 0 and 2 safety car interventions this evening, and a pit stop to be taken by every car in the field for a top-up of fuel. Let's have a look at the grid positions, and it's Brenton Hobson on pole, ahead of Steve Jansen, Ryan Wood and Kobe Williams on row 2, back to Jacob Knight, Bailey Fried, Christian Lindbaum and Mitchell McLeod, with Jamie Craig and Tyler Howard completing your top 10.
Yeah, so just outside the top 10, Mario Vartanian, Daniel Yemen, Harrison Dengate and Will Newell in row 7, Tyson McAvoy, Josh Morris on row 8, Ryan SimSpeed's own Ryan Jones in 17th, with Lachlan Murphy, Bradley Vaughan and Casey Mann rounding out the top 20.
Great to have one of our fellow SimSpeed TV commentators on the grid in the form of Ryan Jones. Brian Vanderwacker struggling a bit to come to grips with the supercar. He'll go from 21st position tonight, position number 28. That's where you should be starting from, Nick Scarrigeau, but of course that position will be left vacant on the grid because you're alongside me in the commentary box as we get set for a race start here at Imola. Field is in readiness, lights out, and away we go. Good start from our pole sitter, Brenton Hobson, but a bit of a sluggish start from the drivers off row 2 of the grid. And that's going to allow someone from the third row to come, and we've already got a car flying off the road and reversing backwards into the path of the oncoming traffic, and a bit more chaos a bit further back with the car getting turned around in at the first chicane at Tamburello as well. But a bit of carnage in these opening couple of corners, Nick.
Yeah, the group just sorting themselves out there. I think we've just seen Steve Jansen's just come through there. Just had a car off 994, which is, I think, either Kobe Williams or Jacob Knight there. So we've just had a few changes up here. Ryan Wood currently sitting in that third position there, but Hobbo and Daniel Yeaman look like they're checking out there at the front.
Well, Brendan Hobson is the race leader. It will take a bit of time for the timing system to update. They're surprised. In fact, it looks like, Daniel Yeaman's back in the pits already, so he's gone for a tow back to pit lane after getting caught up in at the contra top there in the first chicane. Some battles happening a bit further down the order. We've got a Highway Patrol police car in the field. We've also got a car running the Chickaday retro livery from the Alan Dryson Graham Bailey 1986 Bathurst 1000 winning car. Looking very resplendent out on the racetrack as well, so good to see a combination of different liveries. And Mitchell McLeod is going to go straight ahead. He'll surely cop a slowdown penalty for that through the Berrigonte onto chicane. And looking a bit further back, Jacob Knight, who was setting some good times in qualifying, he's up there in position number 7 at the moment, putting some pressure on Kobe Williams in the bright chrome liveried Commodore.
That's exactly right there. So Hobbo over the line there, about a second to Ryan Wood at the moment. Steve Jansen, a little bit unique, actually seeing him in the Holden Commodore. Pretty popular seeing him normally in the Ford Mustang. So currently sitting in 30s. Such a strong driver here in these V8 supercars. Just looking a little bit further down the field, everyone seems to be sorting themselves out a little bit. We did see Mitch McLeod. He's about 5th in the championship or so. He had that off track just before, so he's been battling pretty hard there, but it's very early days yet now.
In terms of driving technique with these supercars, I sat and watched my housemate Brian Vanderwacker during the qualifying sessions that we had earlier on, and the key to getting a good lap time out of these cars is go slower to go faster. It's all about self-discipline, and it's all about not hustling the car too hard. The harder you try, the slower you go, so it really is about being smooth and precise. Be right on board with Ryan Jones, who's made his way up into the top 10. Pretty decent start from Ryan Jones, and he's on the tail of Josh Morris at the moment. Mario Vartanian and Christian Lindbom, the next cars just up the road from him.
Yeah, Ryan did mention that on the first lap he'd either crash it or get into the top 10 there, so doing an excellent job there in 10th places. We're just looking at Christian Lindbom, so bit of a bunch up here at the moment. You can see that that police liveried car there. So between Lindbom, Josh Morris, Vartanian and Ryan Jones, so some pretty big talent there just outside that top 10.
Mario Vartanian running that Highway Patrol livery, and he's under all sorts of pressure at the moment from Ryan Jones, who looks to get a better run out of those final 2 corners at Ravazza, and in fact he's going to get the job done. So Mario Vartanian, a bit of a slow exit there, and he's going to become vulnerable to Brian Vanderwacker as well. So a couple of spots lost there for Mario Vartanian, and it really is crucial, Nick, to get a good exit from Ravazza. Turns 14 and 15 on the racetrack because it leads onto the longest straight on the circuit, and Vartanian's going to get off the circuit. He gets tangled up with another car at that first chicane there, and both of those cars are going to go flying off the racetrack. Just trying to identify the other car that was involved in that incident, but it was Casey Mann, the other car that was involved there.
Yeah, and just as we saw that crash there before, just looking towards the front there, Brenton Hobson, Brian Wood absolutely closing that gap there. It was about a second little bit after the first couple of laps, so knowing that it is a 40-minute race and we are going to get that mandatory pit stop and that safety car, we are going to bunch the whole field again, but we can see Ryan Wood really starting to flex a bit of muscle there, getting back onto the back of that Synergy car there of Brenton Hobson's.
Already a bit of lapsed traffic going to be coming into the equation as well, and you can see that there's a back marker. It's one of the cars that's obviously taken a pit stop just up the road. That I'd suggest would be the Daniel Yeaman car. Indeed it is, and Daniel Yeaman's going to go right off the racetrack and hopefully be very cautious in how he rejoins to ensure that he doesn't get entangled in the battle for the race lead. Not sure if you tuned into last week's telecast, Nick. In fact, I think you were in the race, weren't you, in the Porsche Carrera Cup cars at the Montreal circuit?
Yeah, I was actually, there at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, so it's such an amazing combination. I have such a soft spot for that Canadian street circuit, but yeah, that Porsche is so tricky to get around that course.
The point that I wanted to make, though, is we see Jacob Knight down the inside of Bailey Frid, and Frid comes off second best in that one. Jacob Knight will move up into the top 5, but the point that I wanted to make, the fact that we saw an epic battle for the lead in the closing laps between Brenton Hobson and Ryan Wood, and once again they find themselves in positions 1 and 2 on the racetrack at the moment. Some pit stops starting to take place. Brian Vanderwacker has come in for his pit stop, and what he'll be hoping for is A, some clear track so that he can get out there and punch out some respectable lap times, and B, he'll be hoping that a safety car comes out and traps the rest of the field, because that would then give him the big advantage in terms of the track for the rest of this race.
Yeah, and to pit quite early, I think, is actually a really good idea. Not too many parts of this track that you can really kind of get that draft on the vet. Supercars are pretty powerful, so not utilising that draft so much. I really want to try and get a clear nose and get away. You can see some of these battles that we've had, Imola being such a technical, reasonably narrow circuit as well there. If you get into a tussle with someone, we have seen quite a few people come off, and I'm just looking from the helicopter view, just seeing cars off everywhere at the moment.
There's lots of spots on this track that you can make mistakes as well, because it is such a technical track. We saw an incident for Tyler Howard. Tim Mitchell finds himself off the circuit as well. Here's a replay on our Just Send It coverage, thanks to SimSpeed TV, of what happened to Tyler Howard, and it looks like we're just getting on the power a little bit too hard, too early, coming up the hill out of Akminerali there.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Such narrow tyres here on these V8 supercars, very easy to slide out, and of course all these grass sections and rumble curves and stuff, so easy to unsettle the car. Then not a super forgiving car to drive, really. Ryan Wood showing a nose here on Brenton Hobson. It looks like he's going to get that done. The big drag race up the straight here, Lachlan.
He had a big think about a move up the inside, and to his credit, Brenton Hobson left him racing room, but Hobson, with the better drive out of the corner, that slightly wider line, was able to get the better traction for the run up the hill, and he holds on to the race lead, but under massive pressure at the moment from Ryan Wood. This is a carbon copy of what we saw last week, and up the inside again at Akminerali. The two cars will drag race their way up the hill once again, but Ryan Wood has got the overlap this time, and he will be on the inside when they get to the chicane here. Hard under brakes, there's contact. They bang doors, our two race leaders, and Brenton Hobson gets fired off the road. Ryan Wood through to the lead.
Yeah, we did see a little bit of contact there from that aerial view. I think they almost had contact about 4 or 5 times there, so Hobson will need to serve through that slowdown there, like completely missing that chicane. You can see that front quarter panel ripped off there, so he'll get another go at it later on. Potentially this might be the time here to start thinking about a pit stop.
That's an interesting one. I think that Brenton Hobson probably could have given Ryan Wood a bit more room there, because Wood did have the inside line, but the other question that you have to ask is how deep they were under brakes. Ryan Wood have been able to pull the car up if Brenton Hobson hadn't been there on the outside. So I think just a case there of two drivers who are battling not just for the race win but for the championship, really fighting ferociously for position and not wanting to give an inch to each other, as we see Bradley Vaughan coming into the pits. Here is Ryan Jones on screen at the moment, currently in position 9. His next target, next driver up the road, Jamie Craig, who we see racing in real life in the New South Wales Pulsar Racing Series.
Yeah, Ryan Jones definitely flying that flag high at the moment there. We'll just comparing lap times previous, as we're just looking there. I think that's Vartanian with the police livery. Or potentially, Jamie Craig also with the going for the very Australian police livery here on Just Send It tonight. Ryan was showing some really good pace there. He's pretty sharp there on the NASCARs. I haven't seen him too much around the circuit here, but he's definitely showing a bit of talent here.
Battle a bit further back in the pack. This is Casey Mann, who we saw off the road a bit earlier, and Mario Vartanian, one of our top 5 runners in the championship, been really, really consistent this Just Send It series. Has Mario Vartanian, not necessarily always amongst the front runners, but always seems to bring it home somewhere inside the top 10, but sporting a lot of damage tonight is Mario Vartanian. There is the Highway Patrol police car with no rear spoiler, significant damage to the left-hand front side of that car as well. And as you can see by the way that Mario is struggling to keep it on the blacktop, obviously sporting a fair bit of damage.
Yeah, there's not a straight panel on that car there from Vartanian, so you'll have to try and get... I do believe they give us a fast repair here in the pits. So one thing to note as well, I was looking at that championship, so no Emerson Harvey either tonight. So you'll have to, if he still wants a shot at this championship, you will have to claim one of those drop rounds there, Lachlan.
Correct. For those of you who've just joined us on SimSpeed TV, this is week 8 for season number 5 of the Just Send It series, and we are running an official championship this year, and it will be each driver's best 8 of the 12 rounds will count towards the championship, which effectively means that all drivers will drop their worst 4 rounds when we get to the end of round number 12. So it does mean that you can miss a few rounds here or there, but you do have to make sure that you score well in at least 8 rounds if you are to be a title contender. Ryan Wood, your race leader at the moment, ahead of Brenton Hobson. Still not much of a gap between those 2 cars at the front though. It's only 1.3 seconds separating our top 2 place getters, and they've all pulled well clear of the rest of the field. It's another 5.1 seconds back to the young gunner, Kobe Williams, in position number 3. In terms of the drivers who've made pit stops, Steve Jansen, who was in position 3 before he came down at pit lane, currently in position 15 overall, but he is the highest placed of the drivers who's taken a pit stop at this stage.
Yeah, also I was just checking over that, Ryan Jones as well, one of the early pitters as well, so I think he's sitting around, I think it was either 17th or 18th as well, so coming soon. Also, we've passed the first quarter of the race, so typically we've seen a lot of these safety cars come in around that halfway mark though, so still around another 7 minutes there.
He's got it all wrong.
Too much time.
He got it all wrong there at Akminarawi. That's a corner that a lot of the drivers have been struggling with, because the braking zone on the approach to that corner, you've got a right-hand kick, and you're only just sort of straightening the car up before you are hard on the brakes. But then the other thing as well is you need to try and get on the throttle as early as you can, but also minimise the wheel spin for the run up the hill. So it's quite a tricky sequence of corners to get right, as we ride on board with the second place Brenton Hobson, who's closed the gap back down to 0.4 of a second to Ryan Wood. So the battle between our 2 championship contenders is going to continue here.
Yeah, just as we were catching that slide there before, so Kobe Williams in and out of the pits now, so sitting in 11th place, he's going to be the top of our pitters at the moment there, so... Oh, sorry, Jansen is ahead at the moment, so my mistake there. So Jansen in 8th place currently. Is just seeing this battle here between Hobson and Ryan Wood. They're really heat up there. These 2 are almost inseparable there, and both choosing, and Hobson choosing, almost making a couple of decisions there whether or not to go in the pits there. So Ryan Wood in, Hobson choosing to stay out, whether or not that's going to catch him.
So what Brenton Hobson will be looking for here is the overcut, which is the opposite to the undercut, obviously. And what that means is Brenton Hobson will hope the extra lap of cleared track on warm tyres, he'll be able to do a faster lap time than what Ryan Wood is able to achieve on his first lap out of the pits on cold tyres. And Brenton Hobson will be hoping that when he takes his pit stop, he'll emerge ahead of Ryan Wood. Going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Here is Steve Jansen. As we discussed, he is the highest placed driver to have taken a pit stop. So it's going to be interesting to see where Ryan Wood comes out relative to him as well. Steve Jansen's had a pretty trouble-free race so far, so I wouldn't be surprised if this pit strategy is enough to put him right in the game. And in fact, has he jumped ahead? If he has, Yeah, he has. So Steve Jansen, there it is, on the racetrack, coming down into the Tamburello chicane. Steve Jansen ahead, so a big net gain there for Steve Jansen thanks to the early pit stop strategy.
Yeah, and a big slide there from Ryan Wood, so not too sure. I think they would have just been getting fuel only, as we just see him come through so close there. Very short pit lane coming out, so hard to get that pace right up there. But yeah, Steve Jansen coming down the inside. See what happens with his safety car there. Hobson choosing to stay out. Ryan Wood, good work with pitting as late as he did. He's not going to get too stuck there in that mid pack here, but Hobbo again choosing to stay out there, so definitely has his own idea here, whether or not that's going to pay off for him.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Ryan Wood's pit stop was 2.1 seconds longer than Steve Jansen's stop as well, so the early pit stop to Jansen combined with the fact that it was a slightly quicker pit stop than Ryan Wood, enough to elevate him ahead. So Steve Jansen effectively the race leader at the moment. We are still waiting on some of our other cars coming to the pits. Here's Ryan Jones, who's recovered nicely from that off-track excursion a couple of laps ago. He's currently holding down at 13th position, just ahead of Tyson McAvoy, another driver who's recovered really well. Remember, he was facing backwards on the start-finish straight on lap number 1. So Tyson McAvoy in that Red Bull liveries Commodore, another driver who's done a really good job of working his way back into contention.
Yeah, and in typical with our Just Send It series, we have seen cars have offs before, as we see Ryan run just a little bit wide there. We have seen cars come off there before, but with so much going on and with that pit stop as well, it has pulled people back into the thick of it at the moment. So Hobbo with an absolute clear lead at the moment to Joel. So just seeing Steve Jansen and Ryan Wood having that bit of a battle between, so potentially might be slowing each other up there at the moment as we see Ryan Wood down the inside put that same move on Hobbo there at the start of the race and getting it done there and getting that overlap onto Steve Jansen.
Yeah, into the toes, a hairpin there, turn number 7, but this time Ryan Wood does actually manage to get the job done. So that is a change for the effective race lead. These two cars are the highest placed cars that have done pit stops, and Brenton Hobson stays out yet again. So running along in the first stint, Brenton Hobson. The key thing here is what are his lap times like compared to Ryan Wood and Steve Jansen? Well, last time around for Brenton Hobson was a 1 minute 45.5. Steve Jansen on the previous lap, a 1 minute 45.1. So Brenton Hobson is losing a bit of time to the likes of Wood and Jansen. The margin between Hobson and Wood at the moment, 55.1 seconds. So I think it's going to be very close when Brenton Hobson does finally come in for his pit stop.
Yeah, and you want to be, I'll be getting pretty nervous now because we're getting very close to that halfway mark. We have seen the majority of those safety cars come out bang on that 20-minute mark, so not too sure what Simon's got up his sleeve. He always tries to keep everyone guessing a little bit, and he's definitely pushing ahead with some of the harder combinations. So as we saw last week with the Porsches and Canada, now we have the V8 supercars in Imola, so keeping everyone on their toes with really technical cars and really technical tracks there at the moment. Oh, sorry, I just caught off camera there. I think it was Christian Lindbaum into the back there of Jacob Knight, so he's going to take that 8th position.
And Mitchell McLeod makes the move on Brian Vanderwacker. That's position 14. Fairly clean textbook move there on the main straight, and I think this might be a replay of the incident that you're referring to here, Nick. Indeed it is.
Yes, a bit of a bump and run there, and I think that might have been a traffic car there behind as well, a V in Quas, so lots of elbows out. Wouldn't be Just Send It without it, that's for sure.
And our race leader is in, so Brenton Hobson pits pretty much right on the halfway mark, and this is a critical pit stop in the context of this race. And the big question is, where will he come out relative to the Ryan Wood and Steve Jansen battle, because that'll give us an indication of how the overall race order is going to shake out. We're right on board with Ryan Wood, who's got a bit of traffic here. He's come up behind Jaden Russell at a bit of an awkward time. Russell runs wide though. That's pretty good news for Ryan Wood because it hasn't really cost him too much in the way of speed coming out of Rivarza, those two all-important corners leading onto the straight. Here comes Brendan Hobson out of the pits. He has to release the pit lane speed limiter and accelerate up to speed now. And in the back of the shot there, you can see Ryan Wood, and Brendan Hobson gets out in the lead of the motor race. So the overcut strategy has worked for our championship leader, Brendan Hobson. He has recaptured the lead of the race with 19.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, oh, and a little bit of a slide there from Ryan Wood. A little bit in the grass there, but yeah, Hobbo absolutely timing it perfect. He would definitely be keeping an eye on that clock at the moment, trying to make sure that he did it just on the halfway mark there. Oh, we've just seen a few cars there go off in the background, including SimSpeed's own Ryan Jones there, just getting out of it. I think that might have been between Tim Mitchell and possibly a lap car there of Ian Quas. So, don't want to be on the track there, such a fast part of the circuit.
Oh, there was a very congested section of track there, wasn't it, into the Tamburello chicane, and actually some good evasive action there from Ryan Jones to avoid getting caught up in that incident.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a bit of chatter over the radio there, so I think people are pointing the fingers at each other on who really caused that. There was a lot of cars unsettled. It's such a fast part of the circuit with such a long braking line there, so only really only one car out in front there at the moment, so it looks like most of the cars have pitted there. So Joel Chikavaziria, I think, to get that pronunciation correct.
I think you got that pretty much right. Chikavazira, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah, Chikavaziria. So started in 22nd, currently sitting in first at the moment. But yeah, first still yet to pit, I'm sure. Sure he'll be looking at that clock as well and picking his time perfect. So about 15 seconds in front of these. I was going to say these two. We're just looking a bit further down. Ryan Jones again a little bit wide there. So it's going to let Tyson McAvoy through. He's just got to get that power down now. It's a big acceleration section there. So I think that might have been Mitch McLeod right on his tail now. So an opportunistic moment here for Mitch McLeod.
And Ryan Jones will defend to the inside of the road, and look at that, he drives it straight across to the left, and he says to Mitchell McLeod, if you want this position, you're going to have to go round the outside into Tamburello. Late on the brakes is Ryan Jones, and just manages to hold on to the position, but he will be a bit vulnerable when they get to the next chicane because his corner exit speed was so slow, and he's under a lot of pressure for Mitchell McLeod, who throws it into the chicane. Good battle here just on the fringe of the top 10, and Tyson McAvoy in the Red Bull Commodore just ahead of these two, as well as Ryan Jones makes another mistake, this time into the Tozer hairpin, and allows Mitchell McLeod to get the better run up the hill. And again, Jones on the defensive. The two cars almost rub panels on the run into the next left-hander, and look at that, some Morse code on the rear bumper of Ryan Jones from Mitchell McLeod. Now we come down into this section of the track that Ryan Jones has been having a bit of trouble with tonight. He'll need to be smooth and precise through here on this occasion, which he is, but Mitchell McLeod still getting the better drive up the hill, and yet again Ryan Jones has to take the defensive line. All of this defending from Ryan Jones is compromising his exit speed out of the corners, and probably frustrating Mitchell McLeod a bit as well, as McLeod still yet to find a way past.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Mitch McLeod, with that championship that he's got to fight there. Oh, another bump again there. I think they've bumped almost 4 or 5 times there. Both of them off around the Riverzara? Rivarza, my Italian is absolutely terrible there. But both of them up there, but they are fighting for track position. So Ryan not needing to yield and absolutely doing so well there in 10th place currently. Oh, sorry, up to 9th.
And Brian Vanderwacker, who's just in behind those two, he's got a bird's eye view, and he'll be going, come on guys, fight, so that I can catch up to you and pass both of you. And incidentally, Joel Chikavazira has come into his pit stop now as well and rejoined the circuit in at position 12. As down the inside, Mitchell McLeod, does he make the move through? No, they bang panels once again, and Ryan Jones off the road, gets muscled out high and wide, and Mitchell McLeod finally slips on through. Needed to get his elbows out to make that passing manoeuvre stick, but in the end you'll have to say that I think his pace advantage over Ryan Jones made that passing move pretty much an inevitability.
Yeah, Mitch McLeod, not too unfamiliar with these V8 supercars. Have seen him so much in Scops and in a lot of those official series as well there. So Ryan Jones is starting to get back onto that rear bumper again, so might be able to pull himself back onto there, but you'd have to say Mitchell McLeod might just be the stronger out of these two.
The other interesting thing is at the front of the field, Brenton Hobson is pulling away. So we saw earlier on in the race that Ryan Wood seemed to have a bit of a speed advantage over Brenton Hobson and was able to pass him for the late of the race. But by virtue of taking that later pit stop, Brenton Hobson has fresher tyres now for this last stint. And that's working to his advantage because he is pulling a couple of tenths ahead of Ryan Wood each lap. And we've got a safety car. I was actually wondering if maybe we would get through tonight's race without having a safety car interruption because, as mentioned at the top of the broadcast, it is a random number of safety cars between 0 and 2. Most of the Just Send It races that we've had this season have had at least one safety car, so I was wondering if tonight we might get through with 0, but not the case. We do have a safety car intervention, so we are going to bunch up the field, and that means that that 3-second margin that Brenton Hobson had established over Ryan Wood is going to evaporate, and Ryan Wood is going to be right on the bumper of his championship rival when we get back underway, which you would think will be with about 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, and one person to look at as well, so Kobe Williams sitting in 4th place at the moment. Kobe, you could almost say, with not so much to lose there, being a little bit further down in that championship, and he's such an aggressive fighter when it comes to overtaking moves. I reckon we'll see a bit of a push from him there as well. Jacob Knight and Christian Lindbaum, such a stacked field that we have here at the moment.
Indeed, it is good to see Christian Lindbaum. He's been doing most of the Just Send It rounds this season, of course, a driver with a lot of real-world racing experience. We've seen him in main game and development series supercars and various other endurance races over the course of his career. Doesn't do a lot of real-life racing these days, but it's been great to see him very heavily involved in the sim racing scene in 2020, and he's currently sitting in position 6 in this race. So we'll have a couple of laps behind the safety car. We'll allow everybody just to take a few deep breaths, regather their composure, and think about how they're going to attack this final 10 or 11 minutes of green flag racing.
Yeah, we will see. You could be pretty safe to say that we'll just have this one safety car. So Hobbo with the upper hand at the moment. It'll be up to him to when they go, when the green flag drops. So he's definitely in the prime position to try and extend his lead at the moment there, as we're just seeing Matthew Kefford off at the moment there. So not too sure. Might be able to catch a replay or something like that there. So I think we're going to see a few of the lap cars come around here at the moment.
So Matthew Kefford was actually one of those lapped cars. So that replay was showing that he'd just gone off at Tamburello, but because of the safety car, he's able to go round and get back onto the lead lap. So there is Matthew Kefford passing the iRacing Porsche safety car and going around to join onto the back of the train. So the race order at the moment: Brenton Hobson, your race leader, ahead of Ryan Wood, Steve Jansen, Kobe Williams and Jacob Knight. That's the top 5. Then it's Christian Lindbaum, Josh Morris, Tyson McAvoy, Mitchell McLeod and Ryan Jones completing the top 10. One of the awards that we always like to give out in Just Send It is the Best Postman Award, the driver who makes up the most positions. At the moment, that's jointly held by Brian Vanderwacker and Joel Chickavazira. They've each made up 10 positions from where they started.
Yeah, and it was excellent work there by Chickavazira for sticking out the front there and keeping his nose clean, not wanting to battle too many people. So it's really shown tonight that the latest strategy has paid off most of all. They're just trying to see who was more of the earlier pitters. I know Ryan Jones and Steve Jansen were a little bit earlier on. Just seeing a few more of these cars come through.
Brian Vanderwacker was one of the very first to take a pit stop, so you have to ask the question, what sort of condition are his tyres going to be in compared to everybody else when we get a resumption of play, especially when Joel Chickavazira, who was the last car to take a pit stop, is going to be immediately behind him at this restart.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I haven't seen too much of Chicavazira, but yeah, Brian van der Wacker. We've got some real Just Send It veterans, you could almost say there. Quite a few familiar faces. Harrison Dengate we've seen quite a lot of. Yeah, Christian Lindbaum, almost I think he was there from the start, as well as yeah, Janssen, and I think it was Hobson as well. We've seen quite a lot of. I remember it starting off as a Tuesday night special. It was really my intro to iRacing completely. That was a race that I always tried to get in, and it did change formats as we're just seeing Hobson halfway in front of that safety car at the moment. They did have a few different ways. It was originally who could sign into the server fastest, which I always managed to get the upper hand, and then it did change into qualifying for that top split. So we have seen it in the past in the last few seasons run over multiple splits. So yeah, lots of different iterations here for Just Send It. Always has a bit of a special place in my heart, that's for sure.
Well, speaking of the statistics and drivers who've had the most Just Send It starts, we need to send a very special congratulations to Mitchell McLeod, who chalks up his 52nd Just Send It race start tonight. And in doing so, he moves ahead of Job Stewart on the list of drivers who have the most starts. So Mitchell McLeod this evening officially becomes the most capped driver in the Just Send It series.
Yeah, that's exactly right there. And the series has taken on a few iterations there. I remember back in the days, I think the series is almost a year old, if not slightly older. I do remember it starting, I think it was around, over a year's. Jay's just confirmed there. So bit of a birthday to Just Send It. Always sitting really strong there. And yeah, such a great amount of sponsors, and having Jay produce there and yourself there on comms as well, Lockie.
Well, it's been my introduction to sim racing commentary as well. Last year, getting involved in the Just Send It broadcasts, and since then I've been fortunate enough to be involved in commentary for quite a few other sim racing events and series as well, which I have thoroughly enjoyed. Now, it is quite a long lap here at the Imola circuit, so by the time the safety car comes into the pits, we're going to have less than 7 minutes remaining on the clock. You can see drivers waving left and right to make sure that they've got plenty of temperature in their tyres when we get this race back underway. There are still a few corners left to negotiate before we let the field loose for what is bound to be a flat-out sprint to the checkered flag, and somehow once again we find our two main championship contenders running in positions 1 and 2 on the racetrack, with Brenton Hobson ahead of Ryan Wood. So the lights are out on the iRacing safety car, and you can see that Brenton Hobson is backing the field up. So what he'll be looking to do is coming out of these two corners at Ravazza, turns 13 and 14, to maximise the exit speed and try and open a gap on the field so that he's not vulnerable to attack into the Tabarello chicane. Safety car peels into pit lane, and it's going to be Brenton Hobson who will lead the field away, but he's still not accelerating away. Now he puts his foot down as the safety car heads into the pits. He wanted to make sure he didn't get too much wheel spin on the exit of turn number 14, and you can see the drivers all trying to gain a slipstreaming advantage over one another as they head into the braking zone for Tabarello, and Hobson having to defend. Ryan Wood fainting to the inside, but Hobson's strong under brakes and will maintain the lead as they head through Tabarello for the first time after this restart.
Yeah, the pack really thundering there. So Hobbo almost stopping the whole field, I think to about 70 k's an hour, but such a big acceleration section there. Ryan Wood just showing nose again there. It's going to give Hobson there a few car lengths just in front. We've seen Ryan Wood here so strong around this track here. Bit of a lock up there from Hobbo, but pretty stable there at the moment. We're just seeing a few cars there battle. I think might be around that 5th place there, just out of frame.
Kobe Williams under massive pressure from Jacob Knight and Christian Lindbaum. So Kobe Williams maybe just struggling for a bit of pace at this restart because he's got Jacob Knight breathing down his neck. And Josh Morris looking there on the inside of Lindbaum as well, but Morris is gone. Can everybody miss him? Tyson McAvoy manages to get through. Ryan Jones up the inside as well. and you can see just how much speed Josh Morris has lost heading up the hill. He'll potentially lose another spot here as well, as we see Christian Lindbom making the move through on Jacob Knight, heading through the chicane. Josh Morris has been absolutely swamped there, and Brian Vanderwack has taken advantage of that to move himself up inside the top 10.
Yeah, Vanderwacker under a lot of pressure there, almost to a car either side of him, just behind there. So pretty clean restart though for Just Standards. Seem to be getting pretty away there. So we're seeing Chiga Vazara and so Mitch McLeod as well sitting a little bit further back there. So might have had a bit of contact there. Oh, okay.
He actually had an incident under safety car conditions, so that was why he fell back, because he was actually... Oh, he's taken a pit stop, so gambling on the fresh tyres there for Mitchell McLeod, and he's putting them to good use at the moment because he restarted in 20th position. He's already up to 15th, so 5 spots gained for Mitchell McLeod since the race start, as we see this contest continuing between Jacob Knight and Christian Lindbom, the battle for positions 5 and 6. But out in front, Brendan Hobson has opened up a 1.3 second gap over Ryan Wood. So Brendan Hobson managing the pressure of the race start absolutely beautifully and establishing a very nice margin over his main title rival.
Did just catch one of the wheelie bin logos there, so are seeing a few of those wheelie bin guys out there at the moment. They're not too sure what's going on with Chigas Vazaras, so having a bit of a shocker on there on that restart. Very unfortunate there. Was as high as... Oh, definitely was assisted there. I'm not too sure. It was one of the highway patrol cars there. It was Vartanian, so...
Oh, that's so unlucky for Joel Chigavazira, because he'd done such a good job and was on really fresh tyres as well. Apart from Mitchell McLeod, he would have had the second freshest tyres of everybody else in the race at the race start. So very unlucky there for Joel Chigavazira. As we look at Mitchell McLeod, who continues his march forward, battling it out with Bradley Vaughan at the moment, the contest for positions 15 and 16. Ryan Jones, just saying, has managed to make up a spot or two. Currently in 9th position, but there is Mitchell McLeod coming up the outside of Bradley Vaughan. That'll become the inside when they get down to the braking zone for Tamburello. And Casey Mann up the inside of Brian Vanderwacker as well. So Casey Mann bites up into the top 10, and Vanderwacker about to come under pressure from that highway patrol car of Mario Vartanian as well. So the old tyres on Vanderwacker's car, having taken such an early pit stop, now starting to cause his car to fade in the late stages of this race.
Yeah, and definitely yielding there to Vartanian, probably not such a bad idea. Unfortunately, Vanderwacker again giving up another spot there. I think that might have been Mitch McLeod maybe getting through there on him. It is by the looks of it, so Mitch McLeod through there on Vanderwacker as well. So Brian not having such a good restart here. Vartanian getting his highway patrol holding there fixed up at the moment, showing some really good pace here on the back there of Casey Mann. So Casey Mann earlier in this race there having that spin, but managing to do pretty well. So we've seen quite a lot of incidents between these cars just outside this top 10 here.
We always knew that it was going to have plenty of battle position and plenty of chopping and changing once the race restarted, and it certainly hasn't disappointed. But we're about to commence the last lap, and it's about a 1 second margin between Brendan Hobson and Ryan Wood in at the lead pack. Steve Jansen another 2.3 seconds behind our race leader. Kobe Williams a bit slow at the race start, but has managed to gather himself up and holding on to a very solid 4th position at the moment. There is Tyson McAvoy just ahead of Josh Morris, but the real battle is just on the fringe of the top 10 at the moment, and involves the likes of Casey Mann, Mitchell McLeod and Mario Vartanian.
Yes, still seeing quite a lot of tight battles here at the moment there. So Mitch McLeod there under a lot of pressure at the moment from Vartanian. I think that is Casey Mann just in front there. So Mitch McLeod taking another spot, really showing off how those new rear tyres are going, especially with these V8 supercars, so much power and trying to get this power down here. So just seeing Casey Mann there, just show our nose there in front there of Vartanian. Just a little bit further back with Christian Lindbom.
Yep, holding on to 5th position at the moment ahead of Jacob Knight. Those two cars swapped positions not long after the race start, and it's Lindbom who's worked his way up into the top 5, but Jacob Knight in the Jeff Gordon NASCAR Tribute livery car, certainly not giving up on his hopes of a top 5 position. But Brenton Hobson on the home stretch now, and what a beautifully controlled performance it's been from Brenton Hobson from pole position. Bit of pressure in the early stages as we've got an incident a bit further back in the pack involving Brian Vanderwacker, but executed the strategy to perfection, Brenton Hobson, and he is going to come through and pick up his 4th race win of Just Send It Season 5, and his 7th race win in the history of the Just Send It series to extend his championship lead. Well done to Brenton Hobson. Another race victory. The driver, famous for finishing in 6th position, manages to bring it home in 1st position tonight. Ryan Wood coming home in 2nd position ahead of Steve Jansen. Kobe Williams in 4th spot. Back to Christian Lindbom. And then it's Jacob Knight, Tyson McAvoy, Josh Morris, Ryan Jones, and Mitchell McLeod rounding out the top 10 as we have a look at the replay of what happened to Brian Vanderwacker. He was involved in a battle with Bradley Vaughan, and I have a feeling that Vaughan might have gone for a move on this final lap. Yes, and contact between the two cars, which has forced Vanderwacker offline, and I think there might be a bit more to this story. Yes, so Vanderwacker, as he's tried to rejoin the racetrack, has got it all wrong, and unfortunately another car has been caught up. That's Aidan Brand as an innocent victim in that incident. Brian Vanderwacker will be kicking himself for making that error on the final lap of the race.
Yeah, we did know Aidan Brand having a bit of a shocker of a run, involved in quite a few incidents, but nowhere to go there into Vanderwacker, which actually had straightened him up a little bit, so wasn't too bad there. So Brian be a little bit disappointed there. Did definitely had the pace there for that top 10 finish, all the way down there in 18th place.
So let's recap your finishing positions then. Brenton Hobson, your winner, ahead of Ryan Wood, Steve Jansen and Kobe Williams. Back to Christian Lindbom, Jacob Knight, Tyson McAvoy, Josh Morris, Ryan Jones, and then Mitchell McLeod in position 10.
Yeah, just outside the top 10, Casey Mann, Mario Vartanian, Lachlan Murphy. I haven't seen too much of Lachlan Murphy. Same with Bailey Frid, Tom Wilkinson, Bradley Vaughan, Harrison Dengate, Brian Vanderwacker, Daniel Yeaman, and Tim Mitchell.
And then it was Jaden Russell ahead of Harry Dodds, Ian Quast, the final car on the lead lap. Aidan Brand finishes a lap down in 24th position, and then the cars that had some issues there, Matthew Kefford in 25th. Joel Chigavazir, a bit of a shame for him after leading the middle stages of the race, getting caught up in an incident after the safety car restart. Back to Steve Miller, Will Newell in 28th, Jamie Craig and Tyler Howard getting back into the non-finishers. So there we go, Nick. Hope you've enjoyed your first Just Send It commentary tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I think with my pace that I was having during qualifying, it was probably good that I was in the comms box. In the comms box instead of being maybe a moving target for some of these cars out here tonight. So see how we go next week. I'm sure I'll be able to hopefully close in a little bit to the rest of the pack there. But yeah, such a great race to see from our bird's eye view.
So that is the end of another week of racing here on the Just Send It Sim Racing series, which you've been watching right here on the SimSpeed TV network. We'll be back same time, same place for another night of big sends next week. On behalf of my co-commentator Nick Scarrigew, I'm Lachlan Mansell. See you next week. Bye for now.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going around the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. is over. I can't believe this. Oh my god.
God, what?